The transport ship Wandering Star hummed through the void between systems, carrying its diverse crew on another routine supply run to the outer colonies. Among the passengers was Mira, a human diplomat assigned to the Valkyrie station, a neutral ground where dozens of species conducted trade and negotiation. She'd grown accustomed to being the only human aboard, surrounded by beings who towered over her, possessed natural armor, or could survive in atmospheres that would kill her in seconds. The Valkyrie themselves were apex predators from a death world remarkably similar to Earth. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, covered in sleek fur ranging from silver to deep charcoal, with retractable claws and eyes that could see in near darkness, they were formidable hunters. Their culture prized strength, hunting prowess, and the pack hierarchy that had carried them from primitive hunters to spacefaring civilization. Mira had befriended several Valkyrie families during her posting, but none had prepared her for Corrin. The cub, barely 6 years old in human terms, belonged to Commander Thalon, the ship's security chief. Corrin possessed all the curiosity of youth combined with the fearlessness of a species that had never known natural predators. When Mira had boarded with her modest luggage, the cub's bright amber eyes had fixed on her immediately. "Small," Corrin had announced, tilting his head, "but walks like prey that isn't afraid." Mira had laughed, crouching to meet his gaze. "That's because I'm not prey, little hunter." The cub's ear flicked with interest, and from that moment, he'd appointed himself her shadow. 3 days into the journey, Mira made a critical error. She left her quarters door unlocked while fetching tea from the galley. When she returned, she found Corrin inside, along with his littermate Shara, both frozen in fascination before her open travel case. In Corrin's clawed hand, held with the delicate care of someone handling a sacred artifact, was her hairbrush. "What?" Corrin breathed, his eyes wide. "Is this?" Mira bit back a smile. The brush was nothing special by human standards. Wooden handle, soft bristles, purchased at a space station shop months ago. But to the cubs, it apparently represented an incomprehensible alien technology. "It's a brush," Mira explained, setting down her tea. "For grooming. Humans have fur on top of our heads, and we use tools like this to keep it neat." Shara's tail swished with excitement. "You groom with tools? Not tongues or claws?" "Our tongues aren't rough enough, and our nails aren't strong enough," Mira said, settling onto her bunk. "So we invented brushes." Corrin turned the object over reverently. "May I try?" Something in his earnest expression melted Mira's heart. "Sure, just be gentle." What followed was perhaps the most careful grooming session in human history. Corrin approached with a hunter's focus, drawing the brush through Mira's brown hair with painstaking slowness. His sister watched with rapt attention, making small chirping sounds of fascination. "Soft," Corrin murmured, "not like our fur. Thinner, longer." "It feels nice," Mira admitted, relaxing under the surprisingly soothing strokes. "You're very good at this." The cub's chest puffed with pride. Then his eyes lit with sudden inspiration, an expression Mira would later recognize as dangerous. "If it works on you, would it work on us?" "I don't see why not," Mira said. That was her second critical error. Corrin immediately began brushing his own head fur, creating a peculiar, swept-back style that made him look like a tiny, furry businessman. Shara demanded her turn, and soon both cubs were experimenting with patterns, textures, and styles that Valkyrie grooming had never achieved. Then other cubs found them. By the time Commander Thalon came searching for his son, he found Mira's quarters transformed into something between a salon and a riot scene. 7 Valkyrie cubs, who'd apparently spread word through the ship with the speed of gossip, were taking turns with Mira's brush, creating increasingly ridiculous fur styles. One had managed spikes, another had achieved something resembling braids, a third had brushed all their facial fur forward, creating a leonine mane effect. "What?" Thalen rumbled from the doorway, his deep voice stopping all activity instantly. "Is happening here?" 7 cubs froze. Mira looked up from where she'd been demonstrating technique to the smallest cub, a tiny female named Pris. "Grooming?" Mira offered weakly. Thalon's gaze swept the scene. The cubs with their wildly styled fur, the human sitting peacefully among a pack of young predators, the single wooden brush that had caused such chaos. His expression remained unreadable for a long moment. Then his whiskers twitched, the Valkyrie equivalent of a suppressed laugh. You, he said to Corin, look like you lost a fight with a solar flare. But father, it's a human grooming tool, Corin protested. See how efficient? No tongue soreness, no claw tangling. And you decided to test this efficiency by looking ridiculous? We're not ridiculous, Shara declared, her spike-styled fur somehow making her look more fierce. We're styled. Thalen's shoulders shook with silent laughter. He looked at Mira, who shrugged helplessly. They asked nicely. I couldn't refuse. Of course not, Thalen said dryly, because humans are notorious for their inability to say no to cubs. He paused, studying his son's creation. Although I must admit, the craftsmanship is impressive. Where did you learn such technique? Mira showed us, Pris chirped. She's very patient. Not like when mother grooms. She just licks everything flat. More Valkyrie adults had gathered in the corridor, drawn by the commotion. They stared at their offspring's transformed appearances, with expressions ranging from shock to poorly concealed amusement. Is that my son? One parent asked, squinting at a cub whose fur now stood in perfect parallel ridges. I think that's my daughter, another replied, pointing at the cub with the braids. Commander Thalen made a decision. All cubs will return to their quarters for proper grooming, after thanking diplomat Mira for her patience. He fixed his son with a stern look. And Corin, you will return her grooming tool and apologize for the invasion. But father, now! The cubs filed out reluctantly, each stopping to thank Mira with varying degrees of sincerity. Corin was last, carefully placing the brush in her hands. Thank you for sharing your human wisdom, he said formally. Then, dropping his voice to a whisper, can we do it again tomorrow? Mira glanced at Thalen, who was pointedly examining the ceiling. We'll see, little hunter. After the cubs departed, Thalen lingered in the doorway. You have remarkable patience, diplomat. Most species would have panicked finding themselves surrounded by Valkyrie young. They're just kids, Mira said, tucking the brush away. Curious, playful kids who happen to have claws and fangs. Just kids, Thalen repeated thoughtfully. You humans have an interesting perspective. He nodded respectfully. My mate will want to meet you. Anyone who can make cubs sit still for grooming without restraints possesses magic we need to understand. As he left, Mira heard him mutter, though I'll never understand why they needed to match each other's styles. Pack coordination is supposed to be for hunting, not whatever that was. Mira smiled, running the brush through her own hair. Somewhere on this ship, 7 Valkyrie cubs were probably already planning their next styling session. And despite the chaos, despite being surrounded by predators who could break her like a twig, Mira felt perfectly safe. Because humans had learned long ago that the best way to befriend apex predators was simple. Give them something to groom and let chaos follow. The matching fur styles, she decided, were just a bonus.